You are nothing at all. Mary, the recently hired manager, laughed and said, I'm taking your pay. My salary? Yes, that is what I am expressing. I ought to collect the unemployed workers' salaries. That makes it more meaningful. I have to provide for my wife and kids. I can put up with her losing her mind at work, but not getting paid is another matter together. Since I graduated, I have been employed by this company, and I have had nothing but kindness from the president. I wanted to stay here and work, but I can't put up with a boss that is so controlling that he is threatening to withhold my pay. If so, I'm quitting. I'm grateful for everything you've done so far. Oh, so you're giving up? We saved the income we would have given you, so that's ideal. The staff members who were seeing the conversation between Manager Mary and myself were agitated. They must have concerned what my departure would mean for the project. Nevertheless, Manager Mary mentioned something improper for a manager, not knowing my position. I could no longer remain at this company in order to safeguard my family. I'm Will Miller, and I'm 43. At Thomas Info, an aid company, I am a salaryman. This is a local small-scale aid company that develops systems. We occasionally have to deal with irrational expectations from the principal contractor because we also take on subcontracting jobs. Although we used to work extra until 10 p.m. 10 years ago, the work style improvements implemented recently have made it less unpleasant than it was in the past. I work for Thomas Info in a certain capacity. Although I'm not heavily involved in the development process itself, it's a very significant function. I frequently work outside the office to complete my duties. As a result, there were times when I worked remotely from the workplace. After the former manager retired, a new manager was assigned to Thomas Info's development department one day. I was curious as to who would be selected, and it turned out to be Mary Wilson, a stranger from outside the organization. It appeared like she was in her late 30s. I'll be the development manager starting today. Wilson, Mary. It's good to meet you. Try not to cause too much difficulty for me, even though I'm sure you're all incompetent. When the staff heard this haughty greeting, they knew that someone unpleasant had arrived. I was concerned about how the development department would react to having someone of that caliber in charge. Who is that person? A woman whispered to me from nearby. She is Nancy Smith, a woman in her 30s who works in the same development department as me. Well, is she famous in the industry, or did she get the job through family connections? Manager Mary appears to be the president's niece based on what I later learned. She is the daughter of Thomas Info's president's sister. We nodded, assuming that her contacts helped her land the job. Although it was a somewhat last-minute appointment, these kinds of relationships are crucial in business management. With that in mind, I decided that Manager Mary's promotion was unavoidable. If there had been no issues afterwards, it would have been oked, but when Manager Mary took over, chaos broke out in the development department. As it happens, Mary knew very little about system development. As a result, there was confusion on the ground due to her inconsistent and off-target directions. But Manager Mary, if we do it as you say, the system won't work. Silence yourself. Are you implying that you are unable to obey my commands? To obey Manager Mary would be to put a stop to the development process. However, she became furious when I gave her advice. Naturally, her wrongdoings didn't end there. She attempted to work impulsively. However, if the task is abruptly increased, we won't be able to finish it. Why isn't this done yet? But you just told us yesterday, so it's very. She takes her work very lightly. She arrives in the department just prior to the start time and promptly departs after causing havoc. She doesn't seem to care that all of the staff is having trouble keeping up with the additional work that she has caused. If this keeps happening, the project will fail and the staff's irritation will blow up. I talked to her since I was experiencing this issue. Manager Mary, what? I called out, and Manager Mary gave me a frustrated expression. She then looked down on me with a sneer. It's the ineffective man who rarely appears, which is who I was wondering who it was. Are you blind to the problems the department is facing? Admittedly, I only visit the office roughly 3 times a week. But it's clear that Manager Mary is to blame for the misunderstanding in the development department. She should be working more hours if things appear difficult rather than just informing others. I swallowed my need to retaliate and gave my counsel in the most courteous way I could. Are you having any difficulties carrying out your managerial responsibilities? I'm here to help if that's all right. How conceited. I suppose I am the manager. Nothing is beyond my understanding. Does she not see the urgency, or does she not take ownership of the department's chaos? Manager Mary is unaware that if things keep on this way, the project will fail. Convinced that whispers would be ineffective, I chose to say it straight. I regret to inform you that a large number of staff members are not happy with your current management. The project's advancement has also gone well behind schedule. How come? Manager Mary's thickly makeup wrinkled up in annoyance. Despite feeling intimidated, I continued. It won't be long until the workers' resentment blows up. The project will fail, and the company's reputation will suffer if this goes on. Would you kindly consider our recommendations for the best course of action? The workers in our immediate vicinity listened carefully as I sincerely shared my recommendations in the hopes that things would become better at work, if only somewhat. They have to have anticipated a shift. But she was being so arrogant that she was not going to take my advice. Are you leaving some hostess club since you don't show up too often? Guys who are unpopular are very boring. That's not it at all. I scowled, perplexed as to why she was unable to comprehend. Instead, despite the fact that I barely visit the office roughly 3 times a week, I was being accused of not working. On the other days, I labor outside with diligence. These are all things that only I am capable of doing. Despite having recently taken on the role of manager, it appears that she is unaware of my outside activities. She should normally ask or review the documentation to find out, but she doesn't appear to be interested. Because she is the niece of the president, I could understand that she became a manager overnight. But that's another issue if she intends to cause this much destruction to the development site. You are nothing at all. She laughed and added, I'm taking your pay. My salary. Yes, that is what I am expressing. I ought to collect the unemployed workers' salaries. That makes it more meaningful. That's a bit too much. What? Is there something wrong with that? We should never pay workers who are not productive. I have to provide for my wife and kids. I can put up with her losing her mind at work, but not getting paid is another matter together. Since I graduated, I have been employed by this company, and I have had nothing but kindness from the president. I wanted to stay here, but I can't put up with a boss that is so oppressive that he is threatening to withhold my pay. I resign in such scenario. I'm grateful for everything you've done so far. Oh, so you're giving up? That's ideal, since we were able to save the money we would have given you. Manager Mary grinned and giggled. I'm not terrified of her now that I've made the decision to give up. Do I need to do a handover? Obviously not. There is nothing to turn over because you haven't been working on anything. Comprehensive. Farewell. The workers were yelling at each other as they watched my conversation with Management Mary. They must have concerned what my leaving would mean for the project. Nevertheless, Manager Mary mentioned something improper for a manager, not knowing my position. I could no longer remain at this company in order to safeguard my family. I made the decision to step down and turned in my resignation. I told my wife about the circumstances as well. She agreed with my decision because she had heard me whine about Manager Mary and thought it was a huge problem that I wasn't getting paid. I got it. Why don't you take a little break now that you have the opportunity? Retirement may be the following period in which you are unemployed. Yes, you are correct. The kids won't understand why I'm home all the time if I don't tell them about my resignation. Our finances are sufficient, but in order to provide for my family, I must start a new work right away. My phone kept ringing the next day. I looked at the caller ID and saw that it was the president. I was able to surmise what it was about, but as I had already tendered my resignation, I saw no reason to respond and chose to ignore it. Manager Mary called me as well later on, but it was she who essentially drove me away. Now, what on earth could she want from me? That thinking kept me from answering the calls. The calls from Manager Mary and the president continued for a few more days. But all of a sudden, Nancy called me. I had a good working relationship with her. Perhaps Mary, the manager, or the president asked her to convince me. Still, I chose to take the call since I was curious about the circumstances. Hello, Nancy. How are you doing? Hello. How is business at the company doing? Are you genuinely curious? It's completely disorganized. She grinned bitterly and replied, Well, it's the president's and manager Mary's fault for allowing her behavior. Nancy most likely understood why I resigned because she had witnessed me fighting with Manager Mary. You were doing far more significant work than programming, but Manager Mary was unaware that you were also the project manager. You are useless, she remarked. That's unbelievable. I oversaw the company's ongoing projects in my capacity as a project manager. Although I didn't spend a lot of time in the office, I managed important duties including customer negotiations and progress reporting to make sure projects got done on time. In addition, I negotiated the rights for the programs incorporated into the systems, looked for temporary help when things were moving slowly, and generally handled anything that couldn't be done internally. After realizing you were the project manager, Manager Mary tried to take over your work, but she has so little knowledge of system development that the clients are demanding a different person in charge. That makes sense. The timetable is constantly being jumbled by Manager Mary's arbitrary work additions. We are not sure if we are fulfilling the needs of the client or if the development rights are safe. The accuracy of what we're doing is unknown. We're working so hard, but we have no idea why despite the amount of tasks. It is a bad dream. One might easily envision Manager Mary causing chaos in the development division. I'm sorry for the surviving staff members and customers, but Manager Mary is solely to blame. They ought to address their grievances with her. In addition, she began shifting the responsibility of being the project manager onto other staff members after realizing she couldn't do it. However, how may project management responsibilities be managed by local staff? That's what Manager Mary usually does. I scowled and smiled bitterly. She shouts at people and puts chores on them since she doesn't know how to work. It's a typical poor boss strategy. President Thomas finally called you because he could take it no longer. She is his niece, but he probably wasn't able to defend her anymore. He must have been phoning a lot because he wanted you to return. Thomas Info's president is President Thomas. He was obviously quite desperate because of how often he called. Mary, the manager, also gave a call. She was attempting to assign blame for the mayhem to you, or President Thomas had instructed her to. Have you responded? No, I didn't. It's probably best that way. It would not be ideal for you to handle any irrational charges. As I had already quit and had been informed that there was no need for a handover, I am no longer in charge of the development department. Making contact with them could make matters more difficult. Then I asked Nancy a question I had been considering. Nancy, are you okay? Oh, I'm not at all right. You didn't hear anything offensive. She talked for a long time, but I was so tired of hearing it that I returned it to her. Nancy is a strong-willed woman, so even the male staff finds it difficult to oppose her. Apparently, she also had arguments with Manager Mary. It took place in the tumultuous development department this morning. Supervisor Mary chastised Nancy. Don't act like it's none of your business, you worthless moron. Take action without using a project manager. We are unable to proceed unless you establish a schedule. We work as employees. Decide on your own course of action. I'll seize your pay if you're not even able to accomplish that. Nancy said, Feel free, but if you do, I'll take my pay stub to the labor board at that. Manager Mary struggled to find words. She understood that getting reported to the labor board would be a major issue. Then, Nancy was attempted to take on more job by manager Mary. Take care of this inquiry. I'm not responsible for this and I have no idea how to solve it. Nancy answered coolly, though, believing it was outside the purview of her position. Manager Mary must have been irritated by Nancy's persistent obstinacy. You never stop complaining. Being an inept woman is difficult, isn't it? Stated Manager Mary. The other guys just decide to go ahead and do it without hesitation. I don't think it looks that way. That's what we would call harassment, isn't it? Nancy shot back, a not-so-cute woman acting all high and mighty. Thinking more deeply, it was a waste of time to argue. Manager Mary said as she was leaving. Nancy succeeded in chasing Manager Mary off. I grinned as I listened to her story. You're strong, Riley, being in a position to say that much. Actually, all I did was voice what had to be stated. It's uncommon for her to be allowed to voice her opinions at this company. Manager Mary was forced to concede for this reason. Are you returning to the company? I'm thinking about it. Really? It's difficult to let go after almost 20 years of employment at this organization, starting when I was a recent graduate. I would feel more confident returning to Thomas Info if the working environment is restored than looking for another position. I would be delighted if you returned. So, what's stopping you? It's Mary, the manager. It's clear that Manager Mary is the reason I don't want to go back. She'll keep up her antics in the development division. I had no desire to tidy up her spills. Nancy then said something in a semi-satisfied tone. I believe she may eventually resign. Why do you feel that way? She is the niece of the president. She won't be released so lightly, in my opinion. Well, later on, I heard something. President Thomas gave me another call. I used to ignore the call since I didn't want to get into any difficulty, but after learning certain details from Nancy, I chose to pick up and pay attention. I sincerely apologize, Will. I never thought my niece would act in such a horrible way. What is the company's present state of affairs? It's a total disarray. The clients are quite irate because the project isn't moving forward at all. The workers claim they are unable to continue working for such a corporation. President Thomas let out a long sigh. I'm making a valiant effort to reassure the staff members who are ready to turn in their resignation letters. This is pretty bad, and if it keeps up, our business will actually fail. Resignation letters must be accepted by the company if they are presented. But if they take that action right now, the business will cease to exist. He's requesting that the staff hold off a little bit longer. It resembles trying to stop an impending dam breach. After that, I had a question that had been on my mind. What initially drew Manager Mary to Thomas Info? Well, even among our relatives, we've always had problems with her. Really? I had never before heard that President Thomas had appointed her as a manager out of the blue just because she was related to him. I had assumed that to be the case, but the situation didn't appear to fit. The sole daughter of my sister is Manager Mary. My sister is a secretary at a logistics company where she married Mary, the president. Being the only daughter of the president, Mary was spoiled, and that's what happened. By no means was he putting up with Manager Mary's egotistical actions. I was a little relieved to know how he really felt. Even so, I was somewhat aback to discover that Manager Mary was the president of a different company's daughter. Her conceited attitude seemed more understandable after learning this. She nonetheless managed to graduate from college in spite of her laziness. She was unable to hold down a job, though, and has since changed employment 6 times. She made multiple attempts at dating but was consistently dumped. Even when her relationships and career didn't go well, her pride kept her out of control. I had no idea she had such a convoluted past before coming to work at Thomas Info. Knowing this, I could see why President Thomas chose to appoint someone with her qualifications. I realized he had his troubles and started to feel a little sorry for him. even though I had suffered because of her. She was initially meant to work for her parents' business, but she grumbled that the logistics were too boring. I was forced to take her in since she insisted on working for a company that paid well. My aim was that it would serve as a springboard for her to engage with society. Though he was her uncle and grudgingly granted his sister's and brother-in-law's request, President Thomas undoubtedly didn't really want to appoint her as manager. He had to know what might happen if he promoted her to manager. But in the hopes that it would ease her transition into society, he recruited Manager Mary. It would appear that she was unimpressed with President Thomas's kindness, but I was done with her after this happened. My sister and brother-in-law agreed that we are no longer obligated to spoil her when I spoke with them. They made an effort to assist her in becoming self-sufficient, but Manager Mary completely ignored them. She was full of pride and never felt guilty, therefore she didn't have any appreciation for her family's support. I spoke with Nancy as well, and there are some unanswered questions. Could you please return? Manager Mary is going to be fired. Is it all right for me to return? Yes, in fact, we are unable to restore order to this place without you. I apologize for the chaos, but now that you're back, maybe the workers who are considering quitting will think twice. Then what about these prerequisites? I gave President Thomas a suggestion after pausing to consider it. He saw the value in it and agreed. It was agreed that I would return to work at Thomas Info. Manager Mary, meanwhile, received word of her termination. I visited the president's office to talk about this issue. Manager Mary was also called in at the same moment. Rather than brushing her off cold, he offered her an opportunity to speak. Perhaps in an attempt to get her to think things through and find a different way to make apologies. This was President Thomas's final act of compassion. Manager Mary scowled as she saw me walk into the room. Why is he here? What language do you speak? Do you understand why this place has summoned you? Obviously. I'm being fired, which is ridiculous. Why? It's not at all ridiculous. It's obvious that you don't know how the development department is doing. Are you able to offer any defense remarks? Here, if she had taken responsibility for her mistakes, there could have been hope. But Manager Mary answered in a frantic manner rather than expressing regret. Why am I being fired when I've done nothing wrong? It's because you didn't do the handover properly. I wasn't going to give in to her anymore, even if it appeared like she was only going to blame me. You claimed that I wasn't working, and that a handover wasn't required, despite my promise to do it. The development department is currently in a terrible state as a result. It aggravates me to think about it even today. You ought to have mentioned that you anticipated the current state of affairs without a handover. You are the one who is negligent here. You always place the blame elsewhere. You are in charge of the Department of Development. You ought to have fully comprehended my effort. Why were you ignorant of this? Supervisor Mary did not know what to say. She was unaware of the responsibility that came with being a manager. She most likely believed that she could simply boss her subordinates around and get paid a lot of money. Relying on someone who has quit is pitiful. Didn't you let me go because you could manage without me? Cease talking. You claim as much, yet I have the right to sue you for damages due to your careless resignation. This mess was caused by the project manager who left without a handover. It should be you who accepts accountability. You threatened to seize my income, so I resigned. Isn't it excessive to expect me to assume ownership of the project while putting me in charge of charitable work? Salary confiscation. What is it? I didn't say it at all. Mary, the manager, abruptly became knave. She had threatened to seize my pay, of course, but it didn't seem right that she would acknowledge it in front of President Thomas. Obviously, she had no power to set wages. President Thomas seems irritated by her actions. I presented her with a proof. Don't act as though you don't know. I have all of your careless comments on tape. What? How do you mean? My defense. You contradict yourself so frequently that it would be useless to debate who said what. Supervisor Mary never accepts accountability for her statements. I could never tell when I could be falsely accused in a place like this. I discreetly recorded our chats on my phone in case I needed to establish my innocence. Supervisor Mary became pallid. A corporation that records conversations? Unbelievable. Normally, I don't record discussions. I've never felt the need to defend myself until after meeting you. I will play your statements right now if you deny it. Stop it. Manager Mary made a valiant attempt to halt me. She did not want President Thomas to hear her haughty comments. There was only one thing she could do if she did not want the recording to play. So do you admit that you said you would confiscate my salary and that a handover wasn't necessary? Manager Mary said, I admit it, looking absolutely defeated and cornered. There was no turning back from her rejection now. In light of this, I proclaimed, Manager Mary will be let go, and I will keep getting the pay you were meant to get until you retire. I've told the president that I'll repair the project you almost wrecked in exchange. What? Remain less shocked. It is reasonable to take your income since you haven't been working. Manager Mary could barely contain her shock upon learning that I would be collecting her pay. She wouldn't have given a damn if all she wanted was for me to get paid more. It was frustrating, though, that I would be receiving the money intended for her. Stop being absurd. Are you stealing from me? That is. It is not your right to refuse. You are no longer employed at Thomas Incorporated. She protested, but I wouldn't have been inspired to finish the assignment she had already completely botched without this arrangement. If it were my duty, that's one thing, but why should I have to repair the damage that Manager Mary caused? Of course, all I would lose out on is my initial pay if the idea fails. That's why I find the scenario to be really motivating. And there's something else I need to tell you. What is it now? It was terrible enough to be fired and have her money seized by someone she detested. What more is possible? Something about her expression said, Nancy. Yes, Nancy came into the president's office at the summons of President Thomas. It seemed that she had been standing by in the corridor the entire time. I hear you found something. Yes, something that meets your expectations. What is it? What topic are you discussing? Manager Mary became alarmed at seeing President Thomas wearing a severe expression and Nancy grinning. I was aware that President Thomas and Nancy were looking into something pertaining to Manager Mary. Perhaps they had made a breakthrough. She was seen snatching a bank book by the surveillance camera around a week ago. Additionally, a $3,000 suspicious withdrawal has occurred. You can't talk your way out of this, Manager Mary. What? Manager Mary made a sloppy attempt at stealing, but she had actually stolen business funds. She had greatly overestimated the circumstances if she had believed she wouldn't be discovered. Whatever? What my sister said turned out to be accurate. What was said by my mother? Something President Thomas said to the agitated Manager Mary, appearing irritated. She added that you were using your parents' money to pay for hosts and purchase designer items that you could flaunt on social media. And you attempted to steal from our business instead of complying with their attempts to stop you. A lie. That is not what I did. Then why did you take our company's money without permission? Manager Mary recoiled at the harsh comments of President Thomas. Nancy applied further pressure after that. Stealing cash to pay for hosts. I hate you as a fellow woman. Cease talking. How much do you know? No one has ever loved a lady like you who isn't even cute. How pathetic. Nancy remarked, You said that before, that I'm not cute, her veins clearly throbbing. Nancy reacted like an adult should have when she was labeled ugly, but she must have been furious on the inside. My spouse and kids are already here. I've heard your narrative, but I'm not interested in insults from a lady who has to pay a lot of money to hosts in order to receive any attention after being dumped by guys. Manager Mary's face flushed deep red at Nancy's words. She was dumbfounded. She had failed as a worker and a woman. As President Thomas noticed Manager Mary was at a loss for words, he spoke. You've lost your job. We'll compile the proof and notify the authorities of your embezzlement. Police? That's not how far you have to go. Long? Embezzlement is a grave offense. An offense. She must have believed that obtaining her substantial sum of money would be simple and risk-free. It's possible that she was unaware that what she did was illegal. But she has to retrain her fundamentals if she views society with such indifference. One cannot pilfer another's money. You have to apologize if you make a mistake. She needs to start over from scratch if she can't even grasp these basic concepts. She's over 40 years old, but she doesn't have common sense. You have to change for the better by taking the appropriate penalty. When manager Mary realized how serious all of her transgressions had become, she broke down in tears. She was accused of embezzlement at work. Mary was taken into custody and questioned. It came to light throughout the investigation that she had also embezzled money from guys she had dated. She was accused of fraud, which made her charges more serious. Given the seriousness of her several offenses, she received a 7-year prison sentence. She argued in court that she wasn't at fault, but naturally, it wasn't accepted. Legally speaking, everything she had done was wrong. Maybe a 7-year sentence will make Mary reconsider how she views society. She will probably be in her late 40s when she is liberated, though. She won't be able to start again easily at that age. Her future appears gloomy, even if she manages to learn common sense today. As stated, I'm still employed at Thomas Info. I will get the salary Mary was scheduled to have till she retired if I can bring the project back to life. This is an amazing promise, and it motivates me much to rework the project. When my wife learned that I had found new work and might even be receiving a sizable pay rise, she was happy. It seemed that our kids were unaware of my temporary resignation. I was a little nervous about saying sorry to the clients, but I did apologize and gave them an update on our future plans. We succeeded in carrying on economic dealings with them. Mary was fired, and the development department got back to normal 2 weeks later. After we were able to extend the project's deadline, things started to move forward again. I'm happy to see you back. The project is safe as of right now. You're exaggerating, but I'll do my best. How much the president expects from me is evident in the contract he signed on my behalf. Making this initiative a success was my promise to live up to these expectations. My wife agreed to the divorce without hesitation, and before I could process it, the divorce papers arrived at my doorstep while I was stationed overseas. Shocked, I immediately called my wife, Lucy, who was adamant about the decision. "That's right," she said coldly. "I'll be seeking a substantial amount of alimony. It's your fault for constantly neglecting our family." To my dismay, my beloved daughter, Hazel, chimed in, "That's correct, Daddy. You have to take responsibility." Hearing Hazel's side with Lucy deeply wounded me. "This will make our lives easier," Lucy added, almost sounding like she relished in tormenting me. Little did she know, I had a plan. To swiftly obtain a divorce, move abroad, and transfer everything into her name. My name is George, and I'm a 55-year-old salesman currently leading the sales department at a prominent trading company. Much like my father, who also worked in sales, I spent a significant portion of my childhood overseas, which allowed me to become fluent in 5 languages. After high school, I moved in with my grandparents and attended a prestigious university. Following in my father's footsteps, I joined a trading company, aspiring to become a globe-trotting salesman. I had numerous employment options, but I chose my current organization due to its active involvement in global trade. Despite obstacles like the economic downturn following the bubble's burst and the stock market crash during the Lehman crisis, I managed to achieve remarkable results. The recent pandemic severely impacted the global economy, but we're gradually recovering. Overseas business trips have resumed, and as the sales head, I frequently travel for crucial negotiations. "Another trip, huh?" Lucy remarked sarcastically as I packed for my next journey. "This one might take a while," I responded calmly. and I'm counting on you to take care of the house." Lucy smirked, turned away, and left the room. After finishing my packing, I headed to the living room for a break, only to overhear Lucy's discontented voice. "He's making a big show of packing by himself. So passive-aggressive." "Well, it's better if he doesn't need our help, isn't it?" Hazel replied in a conciliatory tone. I sighed, took a few steps back, and cleared my throat before entering the room. "Oh, Dad, are you all ready?" Hazel asked, reaching out to me, but Lucy remained silent, sulking as she turned away. "I'm ready to go," I declared. "Early departure is on the cards tomorrow. This journey will be a lengthy one." I prepared some coffee and returned to my quarters. Lucy and I have occupied separate bedrooms for almost 2 decades. She held seniority over me at the company, working the front desk. With her captivating appearance and effortless charm, she was the center of attention. Men from all corners flocked to her, desperate to capture her affection. Hailing from abroad, I lacked experience with women. I preferred the company of my high school and university friends, never having a romantic partner. To Lucy, I must have seemed like a mere child, undeserving of her time. Yet, as a newcomer, I gained recognition as a promising prospect, inadvertently becoming a sort of celebrity. One day, when I visited the reception, Lucy covertly handed me a hairpin with her phone number inscribed. Most would have been elated, but I was so engrossed in my work that I could not fathom the company's star bestowing such attention upon me. Thus, I disregarded her gesture. On her way home from work, she unexpectedly confronted me and insisted we go to a restaurant. While sipping her wine, she directly asked, "George, do you have a girlfriend?" Feeling nervous, I replied, "No, I'm too focused on learning the job right now." "Bah, you're so serious. But I've heard the executives have high hopes for you. You're talented and multilingual. A true rising star," she said, gazing at me with admiring eyes. I tried to downplay it, saying, "Speaking multiple languages is common here." "And your humility, too. You're truly remarkable," she remarked. Her words didn't particularly move me, but they seemed to inspire something in her. After several more shared meals, we somehow found ourselves in an approved relationship at the company. As my business trips abroad became more frequent, Lucy was always delighted. "It's amazing you're taking solo international trips after just 1 year. You're definitely executive material," she'd say, her eyes shining with pride. In time, I grew to genuinely love Lucy, and after 3 years, I proposed. "I'm so thrilled," she said. "I'll be by your side, ready to uplift and back you up," she'd assured, determined to be a steadfast companion. After our marriage, Lucy resigned from her job. Several of her male coworkers expressed grief and resentment towards me, but by then, I had earned respect in the sales department, and no one dared to voice their complaints directly. Soon after our wedding, we discovered that Lucy was pregnant. We moved quickly, but Lucy was severely affected by morning sickness and found it challenging to manage household chores. I did my best to assist, but nothing I did seemed to satisfy her. The kind Lucy who used to praise me during our courtship had vanished. I kept telling myself that her behavior was solely due to the pregnancy, hoping she would revert to her former self once the morning sickness had passed. However, the reality was not that straightforward. When Hazel was born, the nights were arduous. Lucy would often say, "At least take care of her when you're home," and leave me with a crying Hazel after I returned late at night. On the few days I had off, I spent my time catching up on cleaning and laundry. Being young, I believed that postpartum women were delicate and required gentle treatment, as my parents from abroad had taught me. Despite my exhaustion, I persevered in supporting my family. Lucy often delegated household duties and childcare to me, but she never let me slack off at work. Thankfully, Hazel remained healthy, avoiding any major illnesses. Time passed quickly, and before long, nearly 30 years had gone by, Yet my relationship with Lucy had significantly cooled. Nonetheless, I take pride in having given my all for my loved ones. When I was promoted to department head at my company 5 years ago, we even moved to a high-rise apartment, as Lucy had wished. After all, a department head at a prestigious firm is expected to reside in such a setting. For a time, Lucy seemed content, and we coexisted harmoniously. Regrettably, this peace was short-lived, and Lucy's attitude once again turned icy. She was willing to handle Hazel's chores, but refused to take on my share. The misery of performing household tasks with my weary, aging body was indescribable. Thoughts of divorce crossed my mind numerous times, but being constantly occupied and having Hazel nearby deterred me from following through. She speaks ill of me where I can overhear, casting unflattering remarks in my direction. All right then, I'm off. I muttered quietly in the empty hallway the next early morning and left the house. For me now, work is where I feel most purposeful. After successfully completing the travel procedures and boarding the plane, I closed my eyes. My body felt heavy because I couldn't fall asleep easily last night. As I closed my eyes, yesterday's conversation between Lucy and Hazel echoed in my mind. Ha! Acting as if you've done nothing wrong with that holier-than-thou attitude. That's what I can't stand. Lucy started complaining as soon as I stepped out of the living room with my coffee. Well, it's because of him working hard that we can enjoy our life, isn't it? I really wish you'd try to keep him in a good mood a bit more. Hazel, with a laugh in her voice, tried to calm Lucy down. When Hazel was young, she was attached to me, always calling Dad, Dad. But as she hit puberty, she started to rebel against me. On the other hand, she seemed to gravitate towards Lucy, who wasn't much of a caretaker, but was fashionable and youthful. Lucy, indifferent to parenting, must find Hazel, who speaks sweetly, a more manageable partner compared to me, who can be nagging, especially when it comes to expensive decisions like high school or college enrollment. Hazel, more cunning than Lucy, cleverly navigated between the two of us to benefit herself. Initially troubled by Hazel's rebellious attitude, I was pleased when she became docile, but a certain event made me realize her true nature was twisted. I used to criticize Hazel for not finding a job after graduating from college, calling her activities bridal training while she just hung out. But now, I don't even feel like saying anything. Dad, do you know any good guys at your company? I wish to find someone reliable and wonderful like you, Hazel would occasionally say when I was home, almost like she was flattering me. Well, if I see someone promising, I'll introduce him to you. I'd respond with a smile, but my heart had grown cold. In the end, Hazel probably just wants someone convenient to leech off, just like Lucy does. One victim in this family is enough, so I've been dodging the issue, pretending to look around. You know, he never introduces any men to me. I'm already 28. I want to get married soon and become a graceful stay-at-home wife like you, Mom, Hazel would say. She's already in the midst of her elegant bridal training, isn't she? Well, boring guys like him are just a drag. Wouldn't recommend? They giggled together. But hey, if you want to have fun, there are plenty of ways to do that, right? Ah, Mom, really? Saying that in front of your daughter? They burst into uncontrollable laughter. I entered the room without making a sound, unnoticed by them. Ah, what am I going to do with those two? I thought. But they're my family after all. I drank my coffee, feeling a sense of emptiness. The coffee was too bitter, keeping me from falling asleep easily. Before I knew it, I had arrived at my destination in Bangkok. It seems I had fallen asleep while deep in thought. Leaving the plane, I felt a sense of refreshment, a stark contrast to the heaviness I felt when leaving home. At the airport, I met up with the local staff who came to pick me up and was guided to the branch office. There, we discussed the details of this transaction. Thailand is a vital hub in Southeast Asia for our company, holding significant importance. On the final day of my trip, After smoothly progressing through negotiations and successfully concluding the contract, all that was left was my return home. A letter from Japan arrived at the hotel where I was staying. Why would they send it by mail when a call or email from the company would suffice, especially since it was addressed to me personally? Curious, I opened it to find a single piece of paper inside. Unfolding it, I saw that it was a divorce paper, signed and stamped by Lucy. Sending the papers all the way to Bangkok. Couldn't she have waited until I got back to Japan? Feeling frustrated, I decided to call Lucy anyway. Oh, how unusual. Did the post arrive by any chance? Lucy asked, her tone dripping with meaning. Yeah, the divorce papers did. What's this all about? I asked calmly. Lucy grinned and laughed. What do you think? I want a divorce. You've been neglecting the family so much that I've finally run out of patience, she declared triumphantly. Is that so? I responded. Lucy just laughed scornfully. I'm serious. Even our daughter agrees with the divorce, she rattled on, not giving me a chance to speak. So there you go. I'll be taking a hefty alimony. Thank you very much. It's all your fault for always disregarding the family. In the background, I could hear Hazel's voice. That's right, it's all Dad's fault. You better take responsibility, she said, berating me. This will make our lives easier. As I listened to their barrage of insults, Lucy burst out laughing. Come on, why so silent? Shocked at being dumped. Maybe he's crying over there. I quietly told them, understood. Let's get a divorce. I'll give you everything I own. I promise. I'll also take the savings. You have no complaints, right? After all, I've supported you all this time, so you should be grateful and hand it over, Lucy said, and I could almost see her smirking over the phone. Understood. Let's proceed with that, I said. As I heard their triumphant laughter, I hung up the phone. Well, things are about to get busy, I muttered to myself and decided to get moving right away. Upon returning to Japan, I immediately submitted the divorce papers and completed all the necessary procedures. Feeling a sense of relief I hadn't felt in 30 years, I cracked open a beer, leaned back in the chair I'd brought out onto the deck, and enjoyed the pleasant breeze. A hum escaped me involuntarily. Then my cell phone rang loudly. Who's that? I thought, picking up the phone. Lucy's name flashed on the screen. Hello. I answered, and immediately Lucy's hysterical screaming blasted through the line. What do you think you're doing? She yelled, her voice so loud it distorted the sound. What do you mean? What do you think you're doing? What's going on? I responded coolly. For a moment, all I could hear was her heavy breathing, as if she was out of breath. Something about a certificate of content arrived. She started speaking again, still panting. Just as it says, due to the divorce, your infidelity has been uncovered, so I'm claiming compensation. It's not just that, is it? I said, my voice steady. Lucy's voice trembled. Yeah, it includes the DNA test results that Hazel isn't my daughter, right? There's also evidence you tricked me into raising Hazel, so I'm asking for the return of all the child-rearing expenses I've incurred. If you're not willing, we'll go to court. But I can't pay something like $300,000, she stammered. Then why not have Hazel's real father pay? Seems fair, doesn't it? What were you talking about? She stuttered. Don't play dumb. I know everything. All of it, I said in a low voice, making Lucy gasp in fear. But he doesn't have that kind of money anymore. His ex-wife took everything. The savings, the retirement fund, everything. Her feeble excuse was as good as admitting Hazel had a different father. I was exasperated by Lucy's usual foolishness. It's the former Executive Vice President Brown, right? Lucy gasped on the other end of the phone. I only found out about this recently myself. Surprised me too, to think that our matchmaker at our wedding was actually your lover, Lucy. Lucy groaned, but then, as if realizing something, asked, Did you tell Brown's wife about this? I was impressed Lucy caught on for once. That's right. You catch on quick. I gathered all the evidence and informed his wife. All this meddling is too much, she said, grinding her teeth, but there was nothing more Lucy could do. His wife was furious about the years of betrayal. Their son is a lawyer, and through his connections, they hired a top-notch attorney. They managed to take almost all of his assets, didn't they? I added. Speaking of which, his wife mentioned she was going to sue you for damages as well. What did you say? Lucy screamed, and then there was the sound of rustling papers. Ah, this. It seemed she had also received a certified letter from Brown's wife, demanding $50,000 in damages. I can't pay that. Wow, that's $350,000 in total. Impressive. Good luck with that. Hey, if you're short on cash, you could always sell some land. Oh, that's right. The deed is in my name now, isn't it? Lucy's voice brightened at my reminder. That's right. It's all done. So I'm going to hang up now. After hanging up, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. About a year ago, I accidentally learned of Lucy's trickery and the truth about Hazel. As for my former boss, the ex-executive vice president Brown, I learned his secret when I was supposed to dine with a client at a restaurant. The client was running late by about an hour, and while waiting, I decided to get some coffee. As I turned around, I saw Lucy and Brown entering together. Brown was my boss, and Lucy, being from the same company, knew him well, especially since he was the matchmaker at our wedding. We've continued to send gifts for mid-year and year-end traditions without fail, but the way Lucy and Brown were together that time felt more intimate than just acquaintances. There was a strangely clingy vibe. I didn't say anything and immediately turned around, making sure they didn't notice me. Conveniently, they were seated at a table across from mine, separated by a pillar. I couldn't see them, but in the quiet restaurant, I could barely hear their voices. Lucy, it's been a while. Yes, I thought we could see each other more since you retired, but you never get in touch. Lucy's voice sounded petulant. My bad. My bad. When I was working, any excuse would do, but now that I'm at home, it's harder to find a reason to go out. I was confused. Brown must have retired last year, so why this sudden familiarity? Lucy's tone was so different, completely unlike the aloof attitude she usually showed me. How's Hazel? Is she doing well? Lucy asked, her voice warm. Yes, she's really into K-pop idols lately, making a fuss about going to their concerts, Brown replied. Hearing Hazel's name, I couldn't help but listen more closely. Is that so? No prospective husbands in sight. Lucy continued, Not at all. I keep telling George to introduce her to some promising young men, but that incompetent fool can't bring a single decent suitor, she spat out. Did she just call me incompetent? Brown laughed lightly, mocking me as well. That's to be expected of him. He's not the type to think ahead. Raising someone else's child for 30 years without a hint of suspicion just shows how oblivious he is. Someone else's child? That phrase kept echoing in my mind, leaving me panicked. It was right after George proposed to you, so I let my guard down, Brown continued. But it's good George never doubted it. He believed she was his own. They laughed together, joyously. I really want to tell everyone she's my daughter. My wife and I only had sons, so having a daughter later in life is special, Brown added. I'm pleased to hear you say that. Hazel knows you're her real father and is proud of it, Lucy responded. Is that so? If she wants anything, make sure she tells me. I want my precious daughter to have the best, Brown said. Let's go dine at a fancy restaurant together sometime soon, Lucy suggested, her tone wheedling, but I was far beyond caring. Hazel knows her real father and is proud of it. My vision darkened and cold sweat broke out. I felt faint, barely recalling the rest of their conversation. Somehow, I managed to leave the restaurant unnoticed and called my client to cancel our meeting, claiming I wasn't feeling well. The client apologized, concerned about my health. Strangers are far kinder, I found myself muttering. I've been betrayed by my former boss, my wife, and my daughter all along. I don't remember how I got home, but when I came to, I was lying on my bed. Neither Lucy nor Hazel had come home yet. As I stared up at the ceiling, I swore I would uncover the truth about Lucy and Brown. Hiring a private investigator didn't take long to confirm my suspicions. They were involved in an affair. Worse, it started even before she married me. Talking to someone who had retired, I learned their affair was quite well known back then. Then came the DNA test. When Hazel came home drunk and fell asleep in the living room, I secretly took a saliva sample. I felt utterly miserable, doubting the paternity of the daughter I had once cherished. But now, realizing she was just as deceitful as Lucy, my anger replaced any lingering affection. The results confirmed it. She wasn't my biological daughter. As I looked at the evidence of Lucy and Brown's infidelity and the DNA test results, I laughed. It was a dry, hollow laugh. I'll use this evidence to drag them through the mud, I swore to myself. A year went by as I waited for the right moment. When Lucy lied about going to a hot spring with friends and instead went out with Brown, I didn't miss my chance. I contacted Brown's wife, revealing their affair with the evidence I had gathered. She turned pale as she examined the proof, but promised to fully cooperate with me. With the help of a top-notch lawyer and her son, we stripped Brown of everything. He was cast out, just as his wife had promised. "It's your turn now." I remember her words when I reported back to her 3 days later. Then Lucy called me again, her voice frantic. "What's the meaning of this?" she yelled. "What do you mean? What's the meaning of this?" "Maybe you should expand your vocabulary," I replied, exasperated. Lucy breathed heavily in frustration. "You transferred the deed to that land, that remote mountain. It's practically worthless. I talked to a real estate agent, and they said I'd lose money selling it. The maintenance fees and taxes are a nightmare." I calmly replied to her shrill protests. "You said you wanted everything I owned. I just made your wish come true. Thanks, by the way. That land from Grandpa was a burden, so you taking it off my hands really helped me out." After my sarcastic thanks, Lucy probably fell silent from sheer anger. Then I heard a voice shout, "Mom, it's a disaster." "Wait, Dad, is that you?" The call switched to video chat, and Lucy's face looked furious while Hazel's was pale with shock. "I just went to the bank to check our account, Mom. Calm down. There's less than $100 left." Lucy's jaw dropped. "Dad, what's going on?" Hazel glared at me. "There's no money left because you all spent it," I replied calmly. Lucy glared at me, raising her voice. "Take a good look. My paycheck gets deposited, right? But almost every month, it just disappears. And what about the bonuses? They went straight to your overseas trips, designer bags, and spa treatments." "No way. That can't be true." But as Hazel looked at the bank statements, her expression said it all. She was dumbfounded. "You know, George," Lucy continued, "it's your job to take care of your wife and daughter. Yet, you haven't managed to save a single penny. You're utterly incompetent." I met her harsh words with a cold response. "I haven't bought anything for myself since we got married. Everything was for you and Hazel. And what did I get in return? Betrayal and mockery. Why should I satisfy someone who treats me like that?" Behind Lucy, I noticed Brown peeking out. It seemed he'd been there all along. Kicked out by his wife, he must have ended up at Lucy's place. "George, long time, no see," Brown said, trying to sound calm, though he looked more disheveled than before. "Long time no see, Mr. Brown," I replied firmly. His face twisted as I continued. "After betraying people for so long, now you're kicked out, with no home or money. What do you want from me?" Brown forced a smile. "What's the matter, George? That's not like you. We're talking about the wife you've been with for 30 years and the daughter you cherish. Stop being petty and help them out, will you?" His words made my blood boil. Help? Why should I? Why don't you help Lucy and Hazel if you care so much? Brown shrugged sadly. "George, I'm just an old man now. My relationship with Lucy wasn't what you think. She was just helping me out. So please, with a generous heart, help Lucy and Hazel. And me too, in our time of need." I watched him, realizing he might have always been this shameless, but it was only now becoming clear. Just then, Hazel cried out, almost screaming, "Dad, your daughter's in trouble. We can't even afford food. You stopped the credit card, remember? It's been unusable since yesterday." Then, "Hazel, maybe you should work and support your real father," I replied coldly. "What are you talking about? You're my father." Hazel shot back, her eyes fierce and determined. "Didn't you say you'd rather have a rich executive as your father than someone incompetent like me? If that's the case, you should cherish that father you're so proud of," I said, trying to guide her to the truth. Hazel exploded. "What are you talking about? Sure, I heard he was rich and had a fancy degree, but now he's just a broke, jobless old man. I don't need someone who can't even buy me anything." She started stomping and yelling, while Brown beside her looked petrified. "Right, you transferred all your assets to Lucy, didn't you? Then this house belongs to her," she said. "We could sell it and get a significant amount of money." Panicked, Brown blurted out, "Yes, that's right. It's a high-rise luxury apartment. It might fetch around $1 million, right, Lucy?" Hazel's anger vanished as she suddenly smiled. "That's amazing. We're set for a while." Brown turned to me cheerfully. "George, my apologies, but we're going to sell this condo you bought and use the money for living expenses and alimony payments." I enlightened him with a simple fact. "What are you talking about? This condo was never in my name, so it doesn't belong to Lucy." Lucy was shocked. "But that's not what you promised. You said you'd give me all your assets." I smiled. "Yeah, that's why I transferred the ownership of those mountains to you. Plus, I gave you the furniture and appliances you bought for your hobbies, even though they were bought with my card. Those mountains are nothing but a nuisance," Lucy exclaimed, slumping to the floor. "Then whose name is this condo under?" Hazel demanded. At that moment, a man popped up beside me, causing Hazel and the others to scream. "This is Kenny, my childhood friend and current employer." "What employer? What are you talking about?" Lucy asked, bewildered. "I quit my job and am now in Bangkok, Thailand," I explained. "Kenny's been running a company here and had invited me before. I never mentioned it because I knew you'd never approve. The first thing I thought after getting divorced and becoming free was that now I could work with Kenny." "But what about this condo?" Lucy pressed on. "Kenny took over. Long time no see, Lucy. You might not remember me. We only met at the wedding. I bought this condo as an investment. I didn't want to rent it to just anyone. And when I heard George was looking for a place, I told him he could rent it cheaply while saving up to build his dream house after retirement. So that's why the condo is Kenny's," I added, watching as Lucy and the others looked disappointed, their plans to sell it thwarted. Kenny continued cheerfully, "You'll probably hear from the real estate agent, but please move out by the end of this month. I rented it to George and his family, but now that you're divorced, Lucy, you're a stranger. And Hazel wasn't really his daughter, right? So I have no reason to rent the place to you." Lucy and the others started shouting at each other, hurling insults. It all stemmed from Mom making Dad angry. "I told you to handle it better," I said. "First, Brown told me to trick George into thinking Hazel was his child when I got pregnant. If you're going to deceive, at least keep it up until the end. You got caught because you were sloppy. It's your fault." The argument had become unpleasant and unbearable. "If you want to debate, do it later. Pack your belongings now. I'm ending this call, I stated firmly. The trio glared at me. Then Lucy cried out, George, it was all a misunderstanding. It was an error. I only love you. When I was younger, this man deceived me. Hazel was a mistake, and I don't need her anymore. Let's pretend the divorce never happened. I'm a victim too, so let's go back to how things were. Please, I was just lonely and foolish. Hazel snatched the phone from Lucy. Dad, you're the only dad I have. You've always taken care of me. Don't listen to Mom. Let's live together, just the two of us. I'll show you your grandchildren someday. Can I come live with you too? Immediately, Brown chimed in, George, Bang is an excellent choice. Southeast Asia is booming. I'd love to work at that company too. Despite my age, my achievements speak for themselves. Please introduce me to your friend Kenny. The trio argued over the phone, trading insults back and forth. Kenny and I watched in disbelief, feeling overwhelmed. Finally, I quietly hung up the phone. The past decade had been a grueling journey for Kenny. With empathy, he acknowledged the challenges I had confronted in cutting ties with those who had caused me distress. As we clinked our chilled beers, a sense of relief washed over us, toasting to the newfound freedom that lay ahead. The real estate agent's directive had compelled Lucy and her companions to vacate the condo, despite their efforts to remain. Regrettably, her family had refused to provide them shelter, leaving them to wander between internet cafes. Brown's circumstances were even more dire, as his wife's powerful connections had obstructed his ability to secure employment or lodging. Ultimately, his desperation led to an unfortunate outburst, resulting in his arrest. As I reflected on these events, a sense of vindication emerged, tempered by the realization of the profound personal toll that betrayal and adversity can take. Ashamed, Lucy and Hazel vanished from the city without a trace, rumors swirling about them living in seclusion in the distant mountains. Since then, I've joined Kenny's company, and our sales have steadily climbed. The people here are kind, filling the void left by Lucy and Hazel. Sharing a beer with Kenny after work, discussing the business, and reminiscing has become my greatest joy, despite my fatigue. I'm deeply grateful for this change. Reflecting back, I see I'd wasted time due to misjudging people. But those lessons have taught me to treasure the wonderful company I now have. In the years ahead, I aim to cherish my relationships and time even more. In high school, I endured constant teasing from a beautiful classmate who would mock me as a nerd. Even now, she continues to insult me, calling me ugly. Irritated by her disrespect towards my cherished partner, I felt it might be time to set her straight. As I pondered this, a tap on my shoulder interrupted my thoughts. Sorry for the delay, a familiar voice spoke. Turning around, I was greeted by the sight of my beloved wife. The classmate's expression changed the moment she witnessed this encounter, marking the start of her downfall. I'm Mitch, the owner of a local cafe. Operating this cafe has been my lifelong dream. Though small in size, we prioritize using high-quality ingredients in every dish, which has earned us recognition in magazines. I'm also meticulous about our coffee beans, often traveling to source them directly. This dedication has sparked disbelief from some friends, but gained the respect of others in the industry. I've even honed my latte art skills, recently winning a competition, a testament to my expertise. Mitch, how's the cafe faring lately? A friend inquired. It's doing well, I responded. How about you? I asked. I'm doing great too. Can I stop by your cafe sometime? They inquired. Absolutely. We're excited for your visit, I replied. I'm grateful for the support. The accomplishment of my cafe is greatly attributed to my wife, Kay. She balances domestic duties with her demanding work. Oh, what a lovely plant, I commented, admiring the new addition to our home. Yes, greenery has a calming effect, and this one complements our space, so I had to get it, she explained. Looks nice, doesn't it? Yeah, I believe it's wonderful. I concurred. Our home is well maintained thanks to her. Kay's taste is exceptional, and her designs could easily become viral sensations on social media. She's not just decorated our home, but also the cafe. Owing to her efforts, both have an elegant and refined look. I lack a discerning aesthetic sense, so I'm grateful for her guidance. Your taste is incredible, I told her. Thanks, it's part of the job, she replied. I can't express my gratitude enough, I added. However, despite her seemingly flawless talents, Kay has one major shortcoming. She can't cook. Mitch, the toast is ready, she said one morning. Great. Let's top it with slices of avocado and serve it with homemade consomme soup, I suggested. That's amazing. I could never do that. My avocados always turn out bad, and the soup ends up black, she admitted. Kay has a fatal lack of culinary skills. To this day, she can only manage to make toast and a honeymoon salad. She used to try cooking for me in the past, but it never went well. I noticed a lot of smoke coming from the kitchen, I said when she tried to fry an egg. You're supposed to crack the eggs first before cooking them. And based on the amount of smoke, it seems you didn't use any oil, did you? She had put the whole eggs in the pan, nearly causing a fire with the high heat. Another time, she tried making boiled eggs in the microwave. What's that loud noise? I asked. Did you just put the eggs in the microwave like that? Yeah, she replied sheepishly. You can cook boiled eggs in the microwave, but if you don't crack them first, they'll explode, I explained. She also attempted to make chicken noodle soup, but it turned into a dark, murky liquid. I did my best to salvage her cooking efforts, but most of it was beyond repair. I guess I'm just not good at cooking, she eventually admitted, giving up on her culinary skills. Mitch, you're amazing. You can create such stylish and nutritious dishes, she said. Thanks, but Kay, you're amazing too. Even though you may not be a talented cook, everything else about you is perfect. The place really has a lovely, welcoming atmosphere. While my aesthetic sensibilities may differ from yours, I'm sure you've done a fantastic job creating such a warm and inviting living space, I expressed with sincerity. Although I may not be an expert in the kitchen, I can prepare delightful and nutritious meals. Although my fashion sense may not be the strongest, Kay has a talent for making our home look beautiful. We support each other in this way and live peacefully. One day, I received an invitation to a high school reunion. Oh, really? I said, reading the letter. The reunion committee consisted of my former classmates, and the organizer was Ashley, a person I never got along with. Ashley was a pageant winner who always looked down on others. I never had a good impression of her and tried to keep my distance. In high school, I was less refined, often laughed at, and called a failure. Hanging out with a failure again? That's the worst. Stay away from me, she would say. I don't like it either, I'd reply, but she would laugh at me. Despite my efforts to avoid her, we were in the same class for 3 years with seats near each other, so I was constantly ridiculed. It was difficult, but my friends, especially my best friend Kevin, stood up for me. What's the matter, Jess? You seem troubled, Kay inquired with concern. It's about the upcoming high school reunion, I confessed. Truthfully, I wasn't thrilled about attending an event organized by Ashley and her group. However, I had formed meaningful connections with many other former classmates, and I was eager to reconnect with them after all these years. If you're hesitant, you don't have to interact with the organizers. Just focus on the people you care about, Kay suggested reassuringly. Motivated by her support, I decided to go and let them know of my plans. I'll be here to pick you up afterwards, so feel free to relax and have a good time, Kay added with a kind smile. I reciprocated the gesture, saying, Thanks, I'm looking forward to it now. Jess, I hope you have a wonderful time. Her words of encouragement filled me with anticipation for the reunion. Greetings, Mitch. There you are, my old friend. Come join us over here. Mitch, it's been ages, We've missed you dearly. As I arrived at the event venue that day, several familiar faces from our high school days warmly welcomed me. Kevin was among them, of course. It's truly been too long, Mitch. We've all been keeping well, though you've definitely acquired a sun-kissed glow from your time abroad. Indeed, you've developed quite a fashionable flair, my friend. It's remarkable to see how we've all evolved since those carefree school days. Yet, once we started catching up, it felt as if no time had passed at all. I momentarily forgot my concerns about the event's organization and simply reveled in the joy of reconnecting with dear old friends. Thanks to Kay's encouragement, I'm glad I made the effort to attend. Greetings, everyone. So good to see you all again. And here comes the guest of honor, the pageant winner herself, Ashley. Her boisterous arrival and striking appearance immediately commanded the attention of the entire venue. Nice to see you, Kay. And Ashley, you're looking as radiant as ever. A group of our former classmates, dressed in a similarly flamboyant manner, gathered around Ashley, almost like a devoted entourage. Kevin, that comparison to Kim Kardashian and her enthusiastic fans is a bit harsh, don't you think? The little critters that gather around it never cease to amaze us. You really do tend to go overboard with your analogies, don't you? Our companions giggled softly, listening to our chat. Ashley peeked in our direction. You people are perpetually so dreary and drag down the atmosphere, as per usual. The women looked down on us, dismissing our worth. I bet you're all still unimpressive. Your partners must be unattractive, if you even have any. You're probably still lurking on the fringes of society, they sneered. That's right. They've been sidelined at work, or maybe they're just unemployed hermits. We shouldn't get too close to them, they continued. They said whatever they pleased about us. I glanced at Kevin's frowning face. Unimpressive. I wonder what they're basing that on. Before criticizing others, they should take a hard look at themselves, I muttered. We're not even interested in you in the first place, Kevin whispered, his voice barely audible to them. Unlike in high school, where he would have responded and faced their glares, Kevin seemed to have matured and chosen not to engage. After they had their fill of bad-mouthing us, Ashley and her group found a new target and left. They're gone now. It's always the same with them. Just put-downs and show-off behavior, I said. Ashley's glamorous beauty was still apparent, and it only seemed to have grown more captivating over time. Look at this, my fabulous life. She posted loudly on social media, her boasting clearly audible. Regardless of our desires, she claimed to have various benefactors who funded her way of life. Given Ashley's striking appearance, it's not surprising, she added. Thanks to them, I can live comfortably without toiling like the rest of us, she boasted. For those of us who strive through diligence, her remarks seemed like they belonged in a different realm. It's as if she inhabits a separate world, we remarked. We want no part of that, do we? Suddenly, the conversation shifted as one of us mentioned finding something Kevin had previously discussed. Don't do it. I'd be mortified if someone I know purchased it, they exclaimed. Quickly, we returned to our own engrossing dialogue, more invested in our own topics than her extravagant claims. This is my partner, she said proudly. Wow, he's quite a looker. Someone like him is the perfect match for you, I responded in awe. Let's see your significant other as well, she insisted. I feel a bit awkward following Ashley's impressive partner, I admitted sheepishly. Oh, he looks lovely, doesn't he? She commented. Thanks. By the way, didn't you mention you recently found a boyfriend? I inquired. Yes, I'd love to introduce you. Go on, show us, she urged. Ashley and the others were excitedly sharing pictures of their beloved companions, clearly enjoying the moment. Hey, let's summon our spouses over, someone suggested. Why not? My guy said he'd join us if I called, another replied. Really? Ashley's handsome fiancé is coming too, I asked, intrigued. Awesome, they chorused. It seemed that Ashley's partner would also be making an appearance. Speaking of which, I wondered if the rest of us had found our own partners. Listening to their conversation, our discussion naturally gravitated towards that topic. I noted. I'm still single, but Mitch, you're married, right? I inquired. Yes, that's correct, he confirmed. Mitch is married. The others exclaimed in surprise. Yeah, we kept things simple. We just registered our marriage and had a small gathering with our families, as we were both quite occupied with work, Mitch explained. I see, and you're wearing a wedding band, I observed. Indeed. Congratulations, my friend, they offered their well wishes. Thank you, Mitch responded. My friends were surprised to learn that I had tied the knot. Kevin was aware, as we had stayed in touch since high school, but I hadn't had the opportunity to share the news with the others due to our hectic lifestyles. Hearing the news, Ashley and her squad ambled over to join our talk. One of the nerds, it appears, had taken the leap into wedlock. Quite a feat for someone of that ilk, wouldn't you say? Marrying someone like him, what kind of person would choose that? She must have poor taste in partners. Probably an unfashionable woman who couldn't find anyone better than a nerd like him. Oblivious to our disapproving expressions, Ashley and her friends speculated and giggled about my wife. Certainly unattractive, they remarked. She must be a perfect match for a guy like you, a complete loser. Ashley laughed loudly, drawing everyone's attention while I struggled to suppress my anger. Being insulted about my kind and beloved girlfriend by someone like her was infuriating. Ashley, it seems you're having quite a lively time, Tyler said amidst the tense atmosphere. Ashley's much-discussed fiancé arrived. This is Tyler, my fiancé. He's a handsome, successful entrepreneur, Ashley said, clinging to her fiancé's arm. He was indeed handsome, dressed in an expensive-looking suit. Wait, that face. While everyone's attention was focused, I realized I knew him. Could it be Mitch? I now recall. You're Tyler? Oh, it was Tyler, the fiancé who recognized me first. Mitch, is that you? I asked. I'm grateful for your assistance, he spoke to me politely. Likewise, thank you, Tyler. I stood up and greeted him. I never imagined I'd encounter Mitch here. Look at that, you and my girlfriend are the same age. It's almost like we were meant to meet this way. You're absolutely right. The world can be quite small at times. Wait, hold on. Do you know this guy? Ashley asked Tyler as we chatted casually. Tyler's friendly expression quickly shifted to one of irritation when she called Mitch a nerd. What do you mean by that? Tyler said. What's the problem? It's just a fact. He's a nerd, that's all. Ashley whispered to the side. Don't say that. You're mocking Mitch. Why do you always look down on people? Tyler responded. Just answer my question. Mitch owns the property where my shop is located. He has a lot of real estate around here. Tyler revealed personal details about me. Turns out my family has money, and I own several properties myself. Running my own shop was a dream, but managing all those properties was challenging, so I rented them out. Tyler was one of the managers looking after one of my properties. He's a polite and earnest person, someone I trusted and heard was successful in business. No way. A nerd like him can't be a wealthy landowner, Ashley said, refusing to believe it even after Tyler's explanation. You only believe what benefits you, Tyler sighed, apologizing to me. Though he wasn't to blame, that's why I respected him. Hey, it does seem true, doesn't it? Ashley said, looking at us. Even if he has real estate, he's still an unattractive nerd. His wife must be unattractive too. Come on, show us your ugly wife who matches you. Tyler tried to stop her, but Ashley was out of control. I hesitated to approach this loud woman, but this could be a chance to challenge her assumptions. While I considered this, my wife, Kay, approached me. Apologies for the delay, she said, tapping my shoulder. Kay, you're here, I exclaimed joyfully. I got here early, Jess, she explained. I thought about waiting outside, but then I came in wearing sunglasses and a hat. Her slim silhouette made it clear she was no ordinary person. Seemingly unsatisfied with our relaxed chat, Ashley impatiently snatched Kay's hat and sunglasses, demanding, "Hey, show your face." "Whoa, it's that popular model, Claire, isn't it?" The crowd erupted in cheers as Kay's face was revealed. "Jess, this is my wife, Kay, who used to model under the name Claire. She was a well-known celebrity, often seen on TV, admired for her down-to-earth personality, healthy lifestyle, and great fashion sense, making her a regular on various shows. Nice to meet you. I'm Kay, the model known as Claire," she said, turning towards Ashley with a smile. "The real Claire. Incredible. I'm a fan. Can I get an autograph?" The crowd cheered as Kay made her appearance. Ashley was speechless and seemed stunned. "Ashley, it's been a while. Do you remember me?" Kay asked, her smile still on her face. "What?" Ashley frowned, puzzled by the question. Her expression showed she didn't understand. "My maiden name is Parker," Kay continued. "Parker. Parker?" Ashley seemed to recall. "The classmate you used to bully, forcing her to change schools?" "No way." Ashley's face grew paler as the memory came back to her. I remembered what Kay had told me before. We were in middle school together, and in the first year, Ashley had started bullying Kay. My personal belongings would frequently go missing. Every day, I faced baseless rumors about my parents being criminals or our family being poor. It was truly distressing. I recalled that Kay had struggled with these issues since middle school. She had a different appearance back then, shorter, plumper, with acne and plain features. Sadly, she was constantly mocked and ridiculed by Ashley, who seemed to find satisfaction in putting her down. Unable to endure the daily taunts about her looks, Kay decided to transfer to another school before her second year of middle school. Even after Kay left, Ashley continued to bully others, perhaps feeling better about herself by asserting her perceived superiority over those she deemed inferior. Her unfounded confidence had only made her more arrogant, and she surrounded herself with followers and had her pick of boys. I've worked hard since then, determined to prove myself to you. At first, it didn't go well, but I persevered. Kay conveyed this message, but then she took it back, saying, "You're not even worth proving anything to." That was a mistake. Instead of her usual pleasant smile, Kay now looked down on Ashley with a derisive grin. "What do you mean by that?" Ashley asked. Kay firmly told her, "It's obvious you're hiding your rough skin under makeup. You might be spending money, but your unhealthy habits show in your body. Shapewear alone can't hide your figure well. Social media might showcase your glamorous life, but it's clear it's all superficial. The content is shallow." One critique after another followed, and indeed, they were all true. The crowd began to laugh, agreeing with Kay's assessment. Feeling looked down upon for the first time in her life, Ashley turned bright red with anger. "Don't mess with me. Stop it," she exclaimed. Seeing Ashley lunge at Kay, I instinctively moved to shield her. Right then, the sound of a camera shutter clicked. Noticed Kevin aiming his camera at Ashley's unsightly features. "What are you capturing on camera? Conduct yourself properly." As I and Tyler held back the still irritated Ashley, Kevin persisted in photographing her. "I'm an accomplished photographer, so I've captured the perfect shot." After completing his studies, Kevin chased his passion and became a renowned globe-trotting photographer. His photo books sell out rapidly. If you continue this, I'll post these images on your social media. The true face of the self-proclaimed beautiful celebrity. My pictures will surely grab everyone's attention. I don't mind. Go ahead, Claire, or whatever, and you, the property owner, Get over yourselves and fail. I couldn't care less. Threatened by Kevin, Ashley hurled a final insult and left. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disturbance. Tyler apologized with an embarrassed look. Since he didn't seem to follow her, it was clear what would become of the two. The reunion ended prematurely, perhaps due to the awkwardness in the presence of the famous. Claire, did I go too far? Kay pondered on our way back. Not at all. I honestly felt refreshed. Really? But the reunion ended because of it. It's okay. The friends and I exchanged contacts and decided to have a mini reunion at Tyler's place. Then that's good. Yeah, and I was angry too for you being insulted. Thanks for speaking up for me. You're welcome. After getting out of the car, we walked hand in hand toward our home. I'd watched Kay smile beside me and remembered how we met. I'm Kay, new to your class starting today. Nice to meet you. Kay transferred to my middle school when we were in the 8th grade. I'm Mitch. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. You don't have your textbooks yet, right? Let's share during class. Thank you. We ended up sitting next to each other by chance, and I shared my textbook with her during class. That was the beginning, and slowly we started talking more and more. Gradually, we became closer and developed a good friendship. On the day of our graduation, we exchanged contact information and graduated. At that time, it was just a friendly relationship, and we naturally drifted apart. Welcome. Hello. I reunited with her when I opened my own cafe. Struggling with attracting customers to my startup cafe, I was at my wit's end. Are you Mitch by any chance? Oh, are you Kay? Kay came in as a customer at a time like that. Delighted by this unexpected reunion, we shared various stories with each other. By then, Kay had already started working as a model. She had grown taller, but was still full-figured and struggled with skin problems. After that, she became a regular in my cafe. I hope I'm not overstepping, but there are no customers right now. I'm actually concerned about the consistently empty cafe. Kay listened as I explained everything without holding back. Mitch, what is it? I might be able to help a little. Following her advice, I remodeled the cafe, and gradually more customers started coming in. I also began to worry about Kay's dietary habits. Knowing she couldn't cook and often ate carelessly, I started offering her healthy, vegetable-rich meals to help improve her diet. Hey, Mitch, I heard this kind of food is good. Yeah, I can make this. Let's try it together. We researched meals beneficial for beauty, and with her efforts, Kay rapidly became more beautiful. As a result, her modeling work increased, and she is now a popular model. We positively influenced each other, leading to success in our respective fields. Kay, you like this cat character too? Yes, I do. We had many common interests, and our hobbies matched. When we shared our past experiences, we realized we had both been harassed by the same person and sympathized with each other. Our relationship deepened, and after I asked her out, we started dating, leading to marriage a few years later. We still advise each other and live happily together. I think meeting Kay again that day was fate. Oh, why bring that up all of a sudden? Kay laughed happily at my words, likely feeling the same. It was a strange connection, both being harassed by the same person. But I wanted to cherish this bond. Holding her warm hand, I felt strongly about it. Afterward, Ashley's social media was being flamed. Kevin didn't post the photo after all, but the story of the reunion spread among other classmates. Well, insulting a popular model like Kay and antagonizing me and Kevin, both somewhat known in our industries, was bound to backfire. It was inevitable. Ashley, with her angry, almost demon-like expression, became an internet meme. She could no longer claim to be an influencer. Later, at a small reunion at Tyler's place, he shared the details. I broke up with Ashley. She didn't like it, but there were already things bothering me, so it was a good opportunity. That must have been tough for you, Tyler said. It's nothing compared to what you and Kay went through, I replied. Ashley remained unrepentant, always blaming Kay and me. I don't care about being a popular model and owning real estate. They are just a nerd and a fatso getting above their station. It's all their fault, not mine. Continuing to speak this way, Ashley exhausted Tyler's patience. Actually, I didn't upload the photo, but I did talk about the reunion in a recent interview, Kevin said with a mischievous grin. His photographs are especially popular among the wealthy. After the interview about the reunion, Ashley's patrons also drifted away, and she tearfully returned to her parents' home, never having worked before. What she plans to do now is anyone's guess. One can only hope her parents will re-educate her. Well, it's no longer our concern, I said. I guess that's right. Enough about that woman. Tell us more about your wife. Yeah, we really want to hear it. Okay, I will. Kay, my wife, became a bit of a topic when Ashley's social media blew up. She revealed that Ashley was a classmate of mine in high school and also went to the same middle school as Ashley. She hadn't spoken about the bullying she endured, but other classmates revealed it, and she garnered sympathy instead. Now she's even more popular as someone who overcame her past. I'd want to make a movie about Kay, I continued. A friend who is a director mentioned this in a film titled Becoming Claire. The popular model starring Kay herself was shot. The movie was a big hit, making Kay a well-known figure of the time. Meanwhile, my cafe is also doing well. After the movie revealed my existence, fans of Kay would ask, "Are you her husband?" I can't disclose personal information, I reply, though it's an open secret among the fans. Thanks to Kay's singing on social media, not to make a fuss, they warmly watch over us. Of course, there are also loyal fans of my specialty coffee, so I'm having fulfilling days. Welcome back, Kay. I'm home and weary. You did well today. Dinner will be ready soon. Appreciate it. Can't wait to eat. After a long day, Kay stops by the cafe once it's closed. I serve her a nutritious meal I made for her. Your cooking is always so tasty, she comments. It's better than any fancy restaurant. Seeing her happy face as she eats fills me with joy. I may never forget Ashley's actions, but I recognize they brought Kay and I closer together. I'm thankful for that. It seems every experience, both positive and negative, shapes our present. With that in mind, I smiled in response to Kay's cheerful laughter.